Australia is not about Australia. It is, for the main character, the titling of a land far, far away where she goes on a journey and is transformed by that journey. Meets somebody, gets involved in some sort of happenstance, some historical eventing, and a transformation of a character. And in the case of Lady Sarah Ashley, it's a rebirth in a land far, far away called Australia, and that's how The Wizard of Oz comes into it, which I think was your original question. 1939, of course, was the year in which The Wizard of Oz was launched. Mm-hmm. And so we have this year 39. Now, I started by researching the entirety of Australian history. So I spent about 6 months doing that. Mm. And there were two things that came up that I thought I could not get away from. One was something I knew nothing about, which was a historical event that the same Japanese attack force that hit Pearl Harbor came straight down to Australia and completely wiped out the northern city of Australia.
In early 1942, a few months after.
February, dropping bombs on that city 64 times. More bombs, in fact, than on Pearl Harbor, not that that's important.
Right.
And sinking several American warships, several English ships, and decimating the town. But the other historical event, which I could not get away from, was much graver than that. This was a thing called the Stolen Generation. Now, to give you some context about this thing called the Stolen Generation, I don't know if does anyone here know what that is? So one person.
So just a few, so this is
really... Are you locals or are you from out of town?
Australia.
What do you know? Okay, I'll test you later now. But this Stolen Generation issue was that... Let me give you some graphic context. I believe you have a new president. How old is he? Does anyone know?
47.
He's 47? 47.
Yeah.
Right. If he was living in Australia, right, possibly at the age of 10, the government would have taken him away from his parents, put him in an institution, possibly have lied to him, not the government, but someone may have lied to him about his parents being dead, given him a new name, and essentially in that mission environment reprogrammed him to be as European as possible so that he could end up doing some sort of, useful task in European society, find some place.
And this was specifically because he was biracial, of mixed race?
Because he had one white parent, one black parent, and it was born of eugenics in the 1930s. Now, we know what eugenics in the 1930s did in Europe. I think we do, don't we? We know where that led. So it was the same thinking, and really it was this idea of through, a racial reprogramming. Now, this was the greatest scar, I think, in the history of our country. It was a terrible and devastating thing. Let me just add, it totally decimated the indigenous population of Australia, decimated it. Now, it was sort of retired in the 70s, and it sort of went away. And for a long time, there was a discussion about, it happened then, everyone's kind of, but we weren't there. And I guess I realized that I could make this huge entertainment that was an entertainment. Lots of laughs and action and drama and romance, all those things. But at the center of this piece, I could put this issue of the Stolen Generation. And if you think of Gone with the Wind, what's so interesting is that it's a huge entertainment, but slavery in America is definitely present in that storytelling. And that notion was the beginning and the inspiration for the next 4 years. So whether it works or not, that idea was the idea that I've been working on since I arrived in Broome from Paris until actually last Friday, because that's when I finished the film.
And you spent about 5 years or so in the whole
process?
Yeah,
I think it's 4 years, but I'm not very good with schedules. If anyone from Vox is here, please don't bring that up. Would you? But yes, I literally, it's interesting, you know this, I saw the sound documentary here, in which I happen to be wearing the same clothes. It looks like I only have one jacket. But I finished the mix for the film. What day is it now?
Tuesday, November 25th.
Right, it's Tuesday. Okay, actually it's longer because I finished it not last Friday, the Friday before. So I was mixing the film in Australia. How many days away is that?
It's like 10 days.
10 days, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Not even. And the film opens tomorrow. So,
it's been out there for 10 days, yeah. So Yeah, well, it opened actually. I mixed it on a Friday, and we showed it to 3,000 people in a premiere on the Friday on the Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday we travelled here, and we've been here, and then we played it last night actually in a wonderful in the Ziegfeld. What a great theatre that is, and I'm happy to report it was actually a really, really tremendous screening because. You never know how these things go, but it was tremendous. Yeah.
Did you kind of create the characters first? One thing you do here is give Nicole Kidman, who's one of the great actresses, you give her this amazing character, Sarah, to portray. So could you talk about creating that character?
Actually, it's kind of two bases. Like the process is parallel. There's all of this research. There's a sort of big idea. There are these materials, and then there's coming from a very classical storytelling point of view. There's the mechanics of storytelling. So one goes to that story shape. They're fairly universal. That is the journey, the quest. It's transformative. So I knew the main character was going to have to be coming from another place, and I started with that. And I think now, look, I worked with four in total, 4 writers, over that 4-year period, and I tend to wear them out after a while, and they just give up and leave. Say I can't do this anymore. But they have been all great and really great collaborations, and we've been able to build the story and cross-fertilize and so on and so forth. But it's hung on very classical story shaping. Yeah. So it had to be a character from far away. The idea of being Sarah, or a woman as opposed to a man, because there's a plot spoiler, and I don't want to go into it, but it has to do with. I won't give a hint because it might get out there. But anyway, it involved being a woman, right? Yeah. Great idea, huh? Anyway, so there was that decision. So there are a whole lot of decisions you make, and then, how many people here make films?
Okay.
How many people here want to make films? How many people don't know what they're doing here? People just walking by and say like, oh, an honest man. Awesome. Now, because how many people here want to make films but aren't making films? Right, well, there's no excuse, just by the by. There's absolutely no excuse. This is what you require. You have an idea, right? You get a piece of paper, and you look at it with a pencil, and you think about the idea, and you do some research. Like, it's good to research. It's good because it's exciting and enriching, and you learn something in your life, and you write that all down on one hand, and then you say, okay, I want to make a point. Like whatever that story is, I want to express something or give someone some kind of feeling. Even if it's just I want to make people laugh, or I want to make people cry, or I want to make them laugh and cry, and I want to do something about the stolen generation. So you put those 3 things together, and then you look at story examples. This is just my process. It could be bunkum, but this is how I go about it. So you look at story examples. Now that's interesting because almost all stories you can track them through history as having primary shapes. Romeo and Juliet was not written by William Shakespeare. It was taken from a John Brown poem, which goes back to a Greek myth called Pyramus and Thisbe. And if you go into sort of, Indian storytelling, you'll find essential story shapes. 2 young people, they fall in love by happenstance. The incumbent adult world doesn't want them to be together, and it ends in tragedy, right? And you can see examples of that all the way through. So you pick your sort of story shape that you like, you get the piece of paper, and you sit down and you write it. You write it down. And you don't stop writing until you've got a beginning, a middle, and end. Let me tell you, that is the absolute hardest part of the process. And anyone who gets through that, the rest of it is, relatively speaking, I wouldn't say it was fun, but there's just no comparison to the terror and the difficulty and the pain in staring at a piece of white paper with a pencil in your hand. And let's think about it, given that some people, not me, right, get paid multi-millions of dollars if they do it really, really well, and it only takes a pencil and a piece of paper, it must be hard. Otherwise, everybody would do it, right? So that is step 1, write it down. Write down a page, 2 pages, shape it out, and what? Your screenplay can be 1 page. Then go and get a video camera or borrow it. Bring all your friends together. Use your energy to convince them that, You know, it's a great thing to be involved in your storytelling or story making. Roll camera, edit in camera if